Hey, it's Dominic from The Dominic Natty Show, and you are watching Terror Express. Here we go, Orlando Rodriguez and Jason Bradford.
Good evening. I was just about to have a midnight snack. Apparently, when I can't sleep at night, I get hungry like the wolf. Much like the beast in the film directed by Mark Cantu, who conductor Jason Bradford and myself, Orlando Rodriguez, will be interviewing on this episode of Terror Express.
Today's guest, we have the talented filmmaker, Mark Cantu, director, are you screenwriter as well of Massacre Academy? And Wolf
screenwriter,
Hollow.
director, and editor for Wolf Hollow and Massacre Academy. Absolutely.
So, Mark, thank you for joining us today. You know, I'm sure that you had plenty of things to do, but thank you for taking the time to be with us. So, my first question for you is that you went from doing short films like St. Passion's Landing, Endgame, and Love Affair, which you won awards for. Congratulations on those.
Thank you.
So then you went on to do a romantic comedy about called Now Hiring in 2012. By the look on your face, it looks like you know what I'm talking about. So, and you also did another one called Night Zero, which is basically a zombie horror movie in 2014. So what inspired the jump from short films to doing those movies in 2012 to doing a horror movie in 2014?
So pretty much what happened is, like any filmmaker, you kind of feel like your storytelling abilities, for better or for worse, you feel like you're able to do a bit more with each project. You say, you know what, I want to push myself just a bit more than what I did on the last one. And so when I went from shorts to making a feature for my first feature, I'd already had my feet wet. We were going in the right direction, and I wanted to do something that was going to kind of push myself in terms of technical ability and things like that. So Now Hiring is actually like a superhero romantic comedy. Like, it's about a guy who's trying to fend for his family. And it's kind of what I was going through at that time. And so it has a little bit of that going on. So like I said, so that was kind of the challenge on that project. And once I kind of felt like I was able to, at the very least, take a movie from start to finish in terms of a feature, that's when I decided to kind of go back to my roots and go, okay, what do I enjoy? What aspects of filmmaking do I actually really, really respond to? And I don't like a lot of CG. I love practical. I love being there on set on the day with things. And so by the time we moved from Texas, because I'm originally from San Antonio, by the time we moved from San Antonio up to Pittsburgh, Night Zero was the first project that I really kind of sunk my teeth into. And we'd had an offer from another distributor that I had worked with. And they were like, hey, if you can do this in X amount of days for $10,000 in this short window of time, we'll give you the budget. And so it was a very rushed process, but we still tried to crank out something. I don't think the end project is very good. It's one of the ones that, like I said, I really took it in the teeth for after the fact. But it, like any other movie, you learn from your mistakes and you learn like what did work, what you shouldn't do ever again. And so it was definitely a learning process, but even that movie taught me that I was ready to do practical effects. I was ready to do like just old school, which is what basically led into Massacre after that. So
nice.
I have to say, I love practical effects over CG. Like An American Werewolf in Paris. I think that movie could have been it could have been a solid sequel if not for that horrible CGI werewolves. If they had done practical, it could have been magical. And you recently posted a picture on your Facebook page of, I want to say, one of the main characters, or at least the title character of Wolf Hollow, and that looks badass. We're talking like old school 80s Howling, American Werewolf in London, Dog Soldiers, Badass, and I was really excited to see that. Really excited.
Well, and one of the funny things about that, and I've told this to our effects artists, I've told this to a few of our cast members, is that Wolf Hollow is probably a culmination of like everything that I've done well to this point. Like I want to put it into this, and so Wolf Hollow legitimately is one of like the I think it's the poster you're talking about of the actual werewolf, the main wolf that we have.
Yeah.
That wolf looks exactly like what I dreamed about, like as a nightmare when I was a kid, or when I had a nightmare when I was a kid. I remember the big, long, pointy ears, and I've seen other iterations of werewolves where I'm like, it's fine, it's not. But to me, there's nothing like a good, solid, scary-looking werewolf that looks like, I'm not going to screw around with you. I'm not going to fuck around with you. I'm going to kill you. And I'm like,
Yes,
it's brutal, and that's what we're going for.
Yes, yeah. And I have to say the thing that really, when I saw this photo, what it really did it for me, and I believe I made the remark that you should hang that on the wall over like a fireplace or something. It would scare the shit out of people. But what I really loved about it was it wasn't that hokey mask over the face or really, lightly layered prosthetics. That this is horror movie werewolf that hasn't been seen in a long time and it's been missed. So it's gonna be really great to see that.
Right. Like
and I want to get back to those things. That's definitely one of the goals that I have in making this movie.
What inspired you to become a filmmaker in the first place, and why do you gravitate more toward currently the horror genre?
So I initially, I've told this before, but like I initially started off as an actor, and that was my grounding, that was my calling for a long time. But then there's that little switch or something that just happens in your head, and for me, it happened when I honestly, like, I didn't start making movies until I was probably about 18, but I had started thinking as a director before that. I had already started thinking like, hey, I have this idea for this movie, and I have this, and how would I shoot it, and so you start putting all those things together, and I would dream up sequences for movies that are never going to exist. I would dream those up when I was like 16 or 17 as I'm falling asleep. And so I think my gears were always there, but I didn't have the expression, and I didn't have enough confidence to do it until I was about 18 or so. And at that point, it became, because I would watch my brother and I would watch other filmmaker friends that he had, I would watch them just fail completely at things. And I would watch the days just get wasted, and I would go, I can do that better than you. I can do that better than you. I can put my day together better than you just did, and you're wasting all this time. And so it came down to partially the art and then partially the technical side of just like, hey, let's be conscious of how our day flows. And so you get to go through that for a few years, and you just go, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm ready to do this. And then you just start making short films, and then you realize what you don't know. So
you've worked with Dave Sheridan and the beautiful Felisa Rose. So how was working with both of them on Massacre Academy?
Oh, it was a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure. It was one of those things where we didn't realize, because we had a couple of roles that we needed to fill, and they allowed for someone of their stature to come in for literally just like a day and get everything we needed. So we shot them both on the same day in the same studio within about maybe 8 hours. I mean, it was a short day, but they are two of the most gracious people I have ever worked with. Dave, you don't realize, like I said, how good he is until you're right in the room with him, because you see the process happening. You see exactly how he's thinking things out. Right. And you know he's great. Like, you've seen all of his work before, and you're like, this guy's solid. And then you see his process, and it's even more amazing. And Felisa is probably, and you can attest to this, she's one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my entire life. And she greets you like she's known you forever. Right. And that has continued to this day, because she's even in Wolf Hollow. She's going to be with us for a couple of days. Right. And even through this process of like talking to her about the characters and planning her days out, she is just an absolute sweetheart. So that's one of the reasons why we're definitely bringing her back for Wolf Hollow.
Tell us a little bit, without spoilers, of course, the synopsis or the log line of Wolf Hollow.
So Wolf Hollow is basically, in a nutshell, it's a group of filmmakers who go out for a location scout, and they wind up stumbling across a den full of werewolves.
What other projects do you have in the near future, and are you going to go ahead and do them through Indiegogo as well?
So yeah, it's funny you bring that up. So we actually have two more that we're working on right now. And some of the girls that we tested for, Wolf Hollow and some of the guys as well. I've already let them know. I'm like, hey, we're already focused on like two other projects after this. Like we're kind of laying the groundwork. So the next film for me is whether I'm producing, directing, I don't know my role quite yet. But the next movie for me after this is going to be a serial killer movie called Trace. So that's what we've kind of got. And that one's a bit more of a realistic procedural. Like we're still kind of figuring that one out right now. But we've had that script for a couple of years, and we're still trying to crack it and make sure that we've got the right take on it. After that, I've got another kind of a throwback. Like I said, I tend to be a bit more of a throwback filmmaker than anything else. I don't like a lot of contemporary stuff. But I'm going to wind up probably doing another 80s throwback action movie, which I feel the calling, like I can feel myself being drawn back to going straight to action. So I want to do kind of like an 80s action throwback, which is called Red Valley. So whether the titles change or not between now and then, but we definitely want to put both of those up on Indiegogo and go forward from there.
Do you believe in the supernatural?
Yes, absolutely. I've actually had some experiences, and I give that a bit of a caveat because for a long time I didn't. And for me, it's one of those things where I have to kind of experience it, and I'm just kind of cynical that way, I guess, in a weird.
What have you experienced? What's the most terrifying experience that you've had?
So there was definitely a point where after like my father had passed away, I was kind of living alone in an apartment. And it was the first time, because I would always hear people talk about you hear things and you see things and you feel things. And I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit. I don't believe that. And I remember being alone in my apartment at the time and waking up and not being able to move, but then feeling, like legitimately feeling for the first time, there was something in my kitchen watching me. And I didn't want to look up. And I could just feel that thing over there. And so then I'd kind of let that go for a bunch of years. And then right as we were about to move up here from San Antonio to Pittsburgh, we started to feel things again in my old house. Like I said, we could feel things in our bedroom kind of sitting there. And then we would bring it up to friends and they're like, oh yeah, no, I felt that too. I totally saw that in your room one time, while you guys weren't there. And so it's like, okay, so it's not just me seeing and feeling these things. And then when we got up here as well, like I said, I would get little moments of stuff. So I've definitely felt stuff. I definitely feel like as I've gotten older, my spiritual plane has kind of opened up to those things, and I'm sensing them a bit more. And so yeah, I definitely believe in it for sure.
Yeah, you're just opening up, and your open-mindedness, I think it makes it
right.
You're more aware and acute of seeing these things and experiencing them.
Yeah.
At least sensing them to the point of where the hair might stand up on the back of your neck.
Yeah, and it's been one of those things where, like I said, I've been in the house alone sometimes, and I just all of a sudden I just feel something here, and I'm like, and I'm at the point where I will talk to things sometimes. I'm like, okay, I feel you, you're here. I'm acknowledging you, and it typically is enough to make things shift and kind of move away. So, but yeah, I completely believe in it now. Absolutely.
What's your favorite horror film?
Favorite horror film would have to be Jaws.
What to you is the most original kill in a horror film?
You know what? I'm going to be really self-serving here, and I'm going to say one of mine.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in Massacre Academy, we actually had a kill that was an homage to one of the kills in The Fly 2, which I thought at that time was like one of the best things I'd ever seen. It's like a face melting gag where the guy pulls his face off after the Brundle fly vomits on him. So we took it one step further, and we had our killer dip one of our girls' faces in boiling oil. And then when she comes out, she just kind of peels her face off. And so we called that the Kentucky Fried Chick for the longest time. Like that was the name of the
Nice.
But to me, I'm like, that's up there with like Jason, was it Jason X, where he puts the girl's face in the, I don't know what it is. But yeah, but like he dips her face in, like breaks the face.
Character. Yeah.
but yeah, to me, like I said, I'm going to be self-serving. I'm going to say that. But if I can't say that, then I would probably have to say, I would probably have to say, yeah, I'm going to go with The Fly too.
If you had rights to any fictional character, whether it be literary or cinema, that you can make a movie on and have total creative control, what would that character be?
Flash Gordon, without even missing that beat. Flash Gordon.
If you could bet on someone to win in a fight, who would you pick? The Wolfman, Frankenstein, or Dracula?
Weighing everything out equally, I'm going to probably say the vampire probably wins out.
Okay. So what horror villain would you be most afraid to confront if they were standing right there in front of you?
I'd probably have to say Hannibal Lecter, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Like, that's because, again, it would be something that, like, in that situation, you wouldn't know that he was sizing you up. You wouldn't know, like, how he's calculated things out already for you. So, like I said, to me, there's something scarier about the reality of all that. Mm-hmm. So,
what movie would you remake if you had the rights to it?
I would probably say Monster Squad.
Oh,
ooh,
very
yeah.
good movie. Love it.
Yeah. And like, because to me, I mean, I love the 80s, obviously. I mean, like, that's my jam. Mm-hmm. But I love something about, like, the Goonies Lost Boys aspect of, you know, kids versus, you know, actual creatures. I would have maybe, like I said, taken things a little bit further, like I said, in terms of being scary, in terms of, because it feels like sometimes they pull the punch just enough, and it's like, yeah, you could have gone a little bit further with that. So it feels like in Monster Squad, it's a classic for a reason. It feels like there's a couple of missed opportunities here and there where I'm like, you could have pushed that. Right. But I would love to do something like that.
I would like to mention just a few people who helped share our previous video with Deborah Voorhees. If I can do a couple shout outs here, I'm going to give a shout out here to the Hamiltonville Horror Podcast. Thank you so much for your support. I'd like to Old School Horror also for sharing, Troy Elke, Christy Medlin-Fatna, and Gary Luttrell. Thank you all for sharing our previous interview. Your support means a lot to us. Mark, once again, thank you so much for joining us. What a great honor it's been.
It was a great pleasure meeting you.
My pleasure. Great meeting you guys as well. Like I said, definitely let us know. Like I said, if you want to have us back on, we'll bring a couple of our other cast members as well, and we'll have a great time too.
I'll bring the snacks.
And again, Orlando, it's been great joining you as well, Orlando.
Thank you.
We interrupt your TV show already in progress. This is Hannah Goldman with Orrstown News. We are receiving reports of an incident. There may have been an assailant.
All of a sudden, this crazy guy came in. My virgin eyes have never seen anything so shocking and so scary in my entire life.
Henry Lee Palmer's dead. Remember last time?
And he starts slashing and slashing.
He sank to the bottom of a lake and drowned.
It's Carney! He's back!
He was wearing a goddamn clown mask!
Honestly, I don't think I could ever go to a fraternity party again.
This guy's dead set on finishing Henry Lee's business.
No, it's personal. It's definitely about me.
Yes, but why?
That's what we need to figure out.
You know what? I don't want to go to some Massacre Academy.